I could easily imagine problems where AI would win almost all the time. Because I pretty much didn't do any programming this year, almost none. I estimated that I had around 10 hours of sleep total within the previous 72.
Welcome to another episode of the Competitive Programming Podcast. Today's guest got a lot of attention recently in the news for competing and winning in a 10-hour heuristic contest against some of the best competitive programmers in the world and also OpenAI's bot. He's been called the last human champion. Before this, I believe he is the greatest heuristic competitive programmer ever. He has won 7 AtCoder open marathons, which nobody has come close. He has won Challenge 24, Marathon 24 and Deadline 24 in the same year. Today you will get to hear a bit about that experience and about himself. Thank you, Psyho, for coming and giving us your time.
Thank you.
So, as I said, this story received a lot of attention and it has been covered in various ways outside of the community. So why don't we start with just giving a brief overview of what was the competition and what was special about it?
Okay. I mean, in a way that was, well, first of all, hi. Okay, so the contest is very similar to that AtCoder open marathon that was run in the past. It features a single, very complex problem where we have to create as good program as possible. And I like to describe those problems as small-scale research because the problems are open-ended. In general, when designing problems, and the good problem in heuristic contest is such that when you read the problem description, you have absolutely no clue how to solve it. And the more this feeling, like it also can be compared to an interesting optimization puzzle game where you have to, like, there's no strict aha moment, but you have to put some work into it.
So this was the first such contest that featured like an AI competitor. What did you know up front about it, about the model and how it's going to work?
Essentially nothing. So first of all, I believe the news that there will be OpenAI's model at the contest were like, I believe 2 weeks before they were announced. Well, we learned that through AtCoder's Twitter, so not the most official way of communicating with us. And at the time we had absolutely no information what's going to exactly happen. And when we asked, Wata told us that he doesn't know as well. So a few days before, I decided to do some research, and I believe 2 months before the contest, maybe 3 months, there was Alpha Evolve thing by DeepMind that, you couldn't learn a lot out of it, but the more interesting paper was ALE benchmark from Sakana AI Labs. And they actually, that was very cool because what they did is they developed an agent specifically for AtCoder heuristic contests. And they published their results, what were the prompts, how the system worked. So based on that, I had some expectations, except it's going to be way better because most probably OpenAI is going to use their new state-of-the-art model, either the GPT-5 that's going to be published today, by the way. This is quite hilarious. Maybe something slightly better than that. We don't know. But so that's one difference, and the other one is you can put essentially how the model works how I expect it to work. That's a slight difference. And I wrote a rather large article that I published on my Twitter a few days ago about it, like what I believe how it works is I like to you have this underlying model. I'm pretty sure that most of the people used ChatGPT or something similar. And the problems in heuristics are so complex that there's no way of one-shotting those problems. Like it's impossible. And even with few more years, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't see anyway. So, but on the other hand, in heuristics problems, you have this local tester. You can essentially run your solution at any point locally on however many tests you want, and you will get very precise score that your solution achieves. And this allows you for essentially to exploit the system. You can, if you have a lot of compute power, you can generate hundreds of or thousands of different solutions, run local tester through each of them, and then select the best one. And you can do this iteratively over and over and over again. So the more compute you have, the more solutions in parallel you can test. And so on the one hand, this is extremely complex problem. Maybe not extremely, but it is like there were many problems that were a little bit more complex. But still, it's out of reach for the current state-of-the-art models. But on the other hand, you can AI system or scaffolding or however you want to call it is able to evaluate so many different solutions that it's in a way it's unfair. You could compare it to a single human competing with hundreds of average competitive programmers that are cooperating. So it's not exactly the most fair comparison, but hey, like 1 year ago, it would never happen. I'm not sure if it would be able to make a proper submit, honestly.
And so what was your expectation as far as the result goes? Obviously, we had no idea how good these AI models are now.
So I thought what can happen could be all over the place, depending on the problem, depending on how much money do they want to burn, essentially. How much time did they spend for creating this specific scaffolding for that contest? Because it also adds a lot to the power, maybe not power, but to the efficiency, which I can talk a bit more about it later. So there were so many unknowns that it was impossible to have a good estimate what could happen. I could easily imagine problems where AI would win almost all the time. If you do something very straightforward, or like let's say if you take the classic heuristic problem is TSP, traveling salesman problem. So if you take a problem where it's generally known how to solve it more or less optimally, and then humans don't really have an edge too much because it turns into engineering problems. So you have all of those well-known approaches that you can use, and essentially it comes down to how fast are you with implementing them and checking which particular one is going to be the best one. And we landed the problem at the finals was somewhere in the middle in terms of complexity. So I was expecting that it's not that impossible that it will be like 8th or 10th, because there were always like 1 or 2 finalists that failed to develop any like decent solution. But I wouldn't be surprised if it won.
And what was your expectation for yourself to win?
Rather low. So obviously I'm I'm no longer in my prime in terms of programming contests. I pretty much didn't do any programming this year, almost none. The other finalists, so I would, that might be not obvious, but I would say that the level of the finalists in AtCoder final was significantly higher than in TopCoder marathons that happened in the past. Maybe not significantly, but quite a bit, because AtCoder is running those heuristic contests quite often throughout the 3 or 4 years ago, the level of it's mostly Japanese competitors on AtCoder's heuristics. So the level raised tremendously. Like I'm quite impressed what people are able to implement within 4-hour contests. That would never happen 10 years ago in AtCoder marathons. So I thought that my winning chances would be around 15 to 20% if I would be well rested, which obviously didn't happen.
You slept 1 hour, right?
I slept 1 hour before the contest, but even worse. So in general, my life is mostly free of responsibilities, thankfully. But I had a lot of them before the contest, like some adulting, whatever, however you want to call it. And I didn't have too much sleep throughout the week before leaving to Japan. Then I couldn't sleep on the plane. So in general, I estimated that I had around 10 hours of sleep total within the previous 72, which is funny in a way. When I posted it on Twitter, half of the news sites thought that the contest lasted for 72 hours and I exhausted myself. And you have a lot of weird John Henry stories, stuff that I learned about like reading those. Anyway, so I was extremely exhausted, and I thought right before the contest my chances are around 5%, and that was probably very optimistic look at it. Like to give to describe how I felt. So first of all, that was the most I was most tired I ever was at the start of the contest throughout my 20-something years of doing programming competitions. I could compare it to so we had those 24-hour long championships.
Yeah.
So I felt at the start of the contest as I usually felt after finishing Challenge 24.
Wow.
So at the start, every 20-30 minutes, I had those moments where I'm like falling asleep, and then I have to struggle, fight with myself to stay awake. I had some shivers just for being awake for so long. It was a complete disaster.
It's an individual contest, so you have no teammates to support you. And did this AI participation motivate you even more to
at some
perform?
point, yes. At the start, no. So in general, throughout the last few years, I went to competitive programming retirement many times. There was even one time where I qualified for the AtCoder Open Marathon, and I didn't go because I decided that I'm no longer competing. Before the contest, I thought I did some time thinking about, do I really want to give 100% of what I have, which is not a lot, mind you.
Seems it's enough.
Well, I mean, I was very lucky. I don't think I was ever so lucky in a contest. So for comparison, when I did AtCoder Open Marathon Finals, I estimated that my win chance is around 50, maybe 60%. Back when it happened. And if I remember correctly, maybe I competed 15 times, I'm not sure, but I think there was only a single finals where I wasn't extremely close to winning. Usually it was down to some silly bug, or I made or you could fix it in one line of code to put my solution from second to first place. So I was always very close, and my goal for the contest was to be just in the top half of the people. So that was extremely surprising. And when I read the problem, I wasn't sure if it really suited me. Well, in the end, it turned out that it did. I could use simulated annealing that I love, and it's so easy to do. And that was probably the only thing I was able to implement in the state of mind that I was, because it takes 5 lines of code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you analyzed the bot submissions after the contest. So what did you learn about like how they implemented this? And the differences, let's say, between a human competitor and an AI competitor.
So that was interesting in a way that the code is. If you would only look at the snapshot of the code, not the whole history, but like one particular submission, and you would do some auto formatting because for some reason the later submission erased almost all of the white space from the code. It's absolutely hilarious. There's one line that's essentially like 20 different lines concatenated. But the code is very human-like. The weirdest part is all of the magic numbers, the hard-coded constants are round. That was very surprising. So the first submission or one of the first submissions that were done looked very human. I mean, they're trained on human programs, so it makes sense. But the whole history of submission is very unhuman-like, inhuman, because first of all, the one thing is clear that there's multiple different solutions probably kept for the model or the scaffolding system, however, agent. Okay, let's use the word agent for the agent to keep at all of the times, and those solutions are developed in parallel. In the end, at the end of the contest, I believe there were like two main branches that were developed without any code in common. So, but even without this single branch of code, between different submissions, you often had situations where 90% of the code was changed. So, like only a small, tiny fragments were kept the same.
And I know your code was around 700 lines at the end. Do you know how big the AI codes were?
After auto formatting, it was 950, maybe 100. But I think 150 lines in mine is template, that it's almost useless. And I had a lot of that code near the end. It could be, if I was well rested, it would probably be closer to 400 or 500. My solution, but it's also a different type of solution.
Yeah.
That could be much simpler. And on the other hand, bot solution has a lot of if statements that are, if this type of test, maybe make this constant slightly higher. It also had problems with being under time limit because it used beam search. That if you use beams, I mean, I'm not sure if you want me to go into technicalities, but do you ever use beam search in algorithmic contests?
No. I have not heard until I researched for this.
Okay.
Maybe some of the really strong guys, but I have never used it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, beam search doesn't make too much sense because you sacrifice accuracy, so it doesn't guarantee for you to find an optimal solution. So I guess in algorithmic contest it would be kind of weird.
Yeah. We don't get a lot of attention, I guess, in the media for competitive programming. I think this is maybe the biggest story ever, honestly, but definitely one of the biggest ones. How has that been? Like, do you find that articles are good, promoting the community? Do you find that maybe there is some overblown things? And
honestly, it's hard to tell. Well, they're not really focused on competitive programming. They're mostly the whole thing is hilarious. I'd say it is blown. It did blow so much because there are so many tiny things that happened in this story that I feel are like, you have all of those pieces that had to exactly happen in order for this whole story to develop. Like I was making a lot of tweets about how tired I am.
Yeah.
People caught up on this idea that I nearly died while I was struggling to fight to win versus AI. Also, this whole dynamic where you have the news every once in a while that AI is better than human in this and in this and in this, and suddenly you have this tiny hope that humans are winning, which also like a lot of places make this news sound like uh, AI already won at everything, but this one particular human is still
Defender of
fighting.
humanity.
Yeah, the last programmer of the last humanities programmer, which is so this part is probably like the most important, but the other one is I worked at OpenAI before. Sam Altman follows me on Twitter, so like there were. I don't think if you swapped me with someone else and someone else would win still with the same situation where OpenAI's model would be 2nd. I don't think if Sam Altman didn't retweet my post on Twitter, I don't think this news would happen. Or maybe it would, but like 10% of the coverage it got.
Yeah, it seems a lot of things aligned to make the perfect story, I guess. So you've been called the last human champion, and obviously it's a bit of marketing and everything. But and when do you think we'll get to that point where, if or are we already there, where it will be like very difficult or impossible for programmers to win in such competitions?
So, I mean, I wrote my thoughts about it, but so I'll try to give like a nuanced version, nuanced answer. Well, it's the issue that I mentioned before, that the agent is essentially hundreds of average programmers, and that's what you're competing against. It's not an apples to apples comparison, unfortunately. So if we could change, because it's not chess where you have always the same board, and so we could have a different problem where AI would struggle and it wouldn't be even close to top 6. In a 2-week competition, I'm pretty sure that every finalist would be on top of OpenAI's model. Not 100% sure, but maybe 1 or 2 people wouldn't be. But the agent essentially plateaued. There was no improvement in the last 4 or 5 hours. If I remember correctly, it was around 4%. So it's hard to tell. Also, OpenAI just trained their largest model. Maybe it was just at the moment where you had this peak of in gaming terms, you have power spike. It's hard to tell when the next one is going to happen, but at the same time, considering like the tempo of improvements, maybe in 6 months the improvement will be so large that all of those small things that I mentioned, that we could tweak the difficulty for AI's model, won't matter, because it would win under every possible circumstance. Probably not with 6 months, probably a little bit more, but somewhat soon-ish, I would say.
And even for this competition, they could basically use however much compute they wanted to invest in.
Yeah, the main, after analyzing all of the submissions, I believe the main thing that the model struggles with is, well, okay, there are a few. The first one is it doesn't really do this deep analytical thinking, which is the same reason why it's not able to solve very hard algorithmic problems yet. and so this, it needs better reasoning capabilities. It needs to be able to think for longer periods. It may take a bit for that. What I'm trying to say is that those problems where I don't know, only like 10 or 20 people are able to solve them within a few hours, they are quite often an order of magnitude harder than the usual problem. So maybe this next level of required reasoning is much bigger step than what we expect. So this is one problem. The other problem is that the model needs some form of intermediate metric that it optimizes. So right now it optimized mostly for, not mostly, it optimized for score explicitly. And if you do that, like when a human competitor is working on a problem, they optimize for code simplicity, they optimize for maintainability. You try to think about the future, what's the best solution. You try to structure your code into building blocks. Like solving heuristic problems is essentially prototyping. You don't think about solution and then write it, but you think about possible space of solution, and you want to write your code in a way that it will allow you to implement many of those solutions. So it's a very long iterative process where you write something, you run it, you get new data, you use that data to figure out what do you want to do next. And at the start of the contest, you want to think about what are the expected solutions that will work well, how am I able to get to this point where I have enough information to figure out what I want to do next. It's really like very multi-dimensional problem that I don't think people will realize how complex the whole decision making is if they haven't done those type of contests. And to be clear, yes, during the contest I do take all of those things into account. So that's one of the reasons why usually my code is much simpler than other people, because I refuse to write anything that I know will take me more time. I want to have enough space and time to try many different ideas. I don't think I answered your question, but sorry.
No, I think it was answered. It's very interesting to hear your thoughts, because you do have also experience with AI, and it's not just you're some competitor that beat it, but you can also talk about the other side. And
well, to be clear, my knowledge is not like super up to date. Sadly, the only people that have up to date knowledge are people that are working in frontier AI labs, and they are not allowed to say anything.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you actually worked at OpenAI. I believe it was on the Dota.
Yeah.
But so how was your time there? Was it similar in a sense to what you're doing at the heuristic contests?
Oh man, so many stories. I probably don't want to jump into a lot of them, but
what you can share.
Okay, let me think. So, well, first of all, I joined OpenAI. So to give you a slightly broader overview of this, maybe not of myself. I never had a 9-to-5 job in my life. So I tried to live my life without many responsibilities. You could blame it on undiagnosed ADHD or stuff like that. But I made at some point I played poker professionally. I played computer games professionally. So then I moved to competitive programming, where I essentially made a living out of winning programming contests, but mostly machine learning contests. there was always very little money in like regular competitive programming. So at some point, OpenAI asked me if we have this. Actually, OpenAI, I was contacted by OpenAI a few months after it was formed in 2016.
Really? So do you know which number employee you were?
If I would join back then, it would be like 15
or
something like that. I believe, at least. But it fizzled? No, I'm not sure if that's the right word. Because I essentially told them, I'm super lazy, I don't want to move to San Francisco, can I work remotely? And they said no. So I said, okay, fine. But 2 years later, I was contacted again. And the main reason why I was contacted was that Jakub Pachocki, Meret, was working there and together with Szymon Sidor. And well, they had this project with Dota, and they thought I'm ideal person to work on it. I remember that they were joking that, well, if AI fails and we are not able to write a machine learning bot, deep learning bot, however I want to call it, to solve the game, then we have Psyho, and Psyho will just hard code the strategy, and we will win anyway. So that. Obviously, it would never happen, but I thought that was hilarious that we have this magical plan B that you can always do. In a way, it was I like, so that project motivated me to go there and worked on that, which is like a really long story where I was contractor at first, and then I was going for like 2 months, going back, then later I joined as a full-time. So there are a lot of details. But I decided to join because at the time, I remember that when I went there for like an interview of some sort, and I talked with Greg, and I remember I mentioned to him that it does feel at the time that solving Dota feels nearly impossible, or at least develop like a machine learning based bot that's very good. Mostly because if you are able to do that, then we are able to solve a lot of other complex problems through machine learning. And in a way, it's funny because at the time, no RL, no reinforcement learning based system was able to really show any advanced reasoning skills. And we could talk about AlphaGo, but I always found it as like straightforward. For Go, you can use CNNs, convolutional neural networks, is like ideal network structure to solve that. So in my head, AlphaGo was never really, Go itself was never really that hard problem. And with Dota, it was like, oh yeah, but you have so many different issues, long-term planning, so many hard decisions, etc. So it felt impossible, and then it motivated me. Okay, fine. If it's so hard, then it's also a video game that I played before. Then yeah, it looks fun. So let's try it. In the end, it turned out to be much easier than I thought, and that was probably the biggest update for me, that a lot of the problems that we think that they are really hard, they require a lot of thinking, that at the time we thought that only humans could do it. In practice, they usually require much less developed skills than we think, and that was probably the main reason why we were able to develop a really good bot for Dota. It wasn't just that hard as we thought it is.
And did you leave after you beat the world champions, or?
So my story is kind of weird, and I don't want to go into a lot of details. But what happened after Dota is I moved to reasoning team, which then that was the team focused on figuring out how to make the models smart. So at the time it was the end of 2019. So GPT-2 was already published. I think GPT-2 was 2018 or 17. I'm not sure, honestly. But that was like the first language model that essentially showed everyone that, oh my god, it's able to create decent sentences. Like I was blown away by it, mostly because I suddenly saw something that I thought it's not possible. And so that was also my big moment for generative AI, where that was the moment where I saw that the whole path to AGI, or however we want to call it, like those are pretty much buzzwords right now.
Yeah.
But that was the point where, okay, there is a path.
It was more than Dota.
Yeah. And for Dota, the thinking part was essentially a huge LSTM. So nothing really smart about it. We have attention at few points, but it was mostly just a huge LSTM. And that was it. Like, yeah.
Have you ever thought about maybe going back to some research for AI, maybe in regards to competitive programming or something else?
There were a few times I thought about it. Well, so I loved OpenAI right around when pandemic started. I literally flew on the last plane from San Francisco to Warsaw before borders were closed in Poland. Like the very last plane. The airports were kind of weird place at the time, where if someone was coughing even a little bit, everyone was like suddenly running away. So I had a lot of ideas what I wanted to do next after that. On one hand, I thought about going deeper into AI safety and talking about dangers. And that's if I stayed at OpenAI, or if I moved to any other lab, that would probably what I would be doing. Because I do feel that in the current situation, that's the most important stuff, not the essentially arms race, what we have right now, that kind of disregards any safety, maybe not any safety, but it's on the back plane right now. So that's one position, and the other potential thing that I could do is go back to game development, which is the main reason why I ever started programming in the first place. And I had few adventures with game development or game design of some sort. I designed few escape rooms in Poland. I mean, designed and built. I had my own indie games studio at some point, but I never published anything because it requires a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I'm not good at focusing at anything for like longer than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Probably undiagnosed ADHD.
Yeah, I also started programming because I wanted to make games, but I never got around to it. Once I got hooked on competitive programming.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand. It has more immediate dopamine.
Definitely, yeah. I think that's why a lot of people do it.
Yeah.
So maybe I'd like to talk to you about how you actually started in competitive programming, like the early years.
Sure.
How you found out about it.
So I did the Polish Informatics Olympiad, or Olympiad of Informatics. I'm not sure what's the correct one. I've learned about it like randomly when I was in high school, during the first year of my high school, by reading some random paper somewhere in the hall, and I did terribly during my first 2 tries. Well, the problem, so I'm 42 right now, and the internet back then was already working, but it wasn't widespread. I didn't have access to the internet when I was still in high school. So I kind of wanted to be good at Olympiad, but I had no access to the knowledge, which continued. What I mean by this is I never really got to, I wasn't lucky to be, I don't know, put into, my high school was mostly focused on I'm struggling with words right now.
No problem.
Humanistic, I don't know. So it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't oriented towards STEM.
Yeah, humanities.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can understand a bit of Polish.
Yeah, right. So we had after hours we had this. You could go for an acting class or stuff like that. The level of computer science, or actually computer science, or more like math class, was not very high. So I didn't, like, there were no other people that I could talk with. Anyway, so what happened is that on the last year of my high school, I managed to qualify for the regional. So in Poland at the time, so you had the first step, the first
stage.
Yeah, the first stage was you submitted your solutions through, I believe, email at the time. Honestly, I'm not sure. Maybe it was just a regular mail where I had to mail a disk with I don't know, so long time ago. But I did that. I barely qualified. And during that year, there were 4 problems, two on one day and 2 on the second one. There was one problem that was super hard that no one was able to do. There was one problem that was essentially a somewhat simple dynamic problem, but I never solved any. Maybe conceptually I would be able to do at the time one-dimensional dynamic problem. But what I did, and I remember that this is so weird, I was generating a lot of numbers so this input has this answer, this input has this answer. So I had several pieces of paper where I had like 2-dimensional grids with the outputs, and somehow this problem allowed me to, just by looking at those numbers, develop a closed form solution. I remember I spent like 2 or 3 hours just generating those output values, and I wrote. That was the solution. My solution was one-liner, and I believe I got like 80 out of 100 for that problem, because there were some issues with rounding big integers, or because I used floats. Because I had no idea what was the other way to solve it. There was one problem that was probably, I would consider trivial right now, but it required BFS. I never learned anything about graphs before. I had no clue what the graph is. But the funny part was that the problem was on the second day. And during the first day, I went to the lunch with other high schoolers, other finalists. Sorry, not finalists, other like regional finalists. And they were talking about various algorithms, and someone described BFS at the time. And so I was able to solve that problem only because someone talked about something similar during the lunch the day before. And the third problem was very mathy, where you had to the hardest problem the hardest sub problem for me was that I figured out that I have to calculate GCD, greatest common divider. That's the thing. And I had no idea how to do that. And for some reason, I was dumb enough that I didn't even think about that I could like 2 for loops and like choose the maximum. But thankfully, the maximum number for the maximum input for the GCD was 20. So I had like huge switch statement for every possible input. So that's my regional finals, when I had absolutely no algorithmic knowledge and quite honestly very poor programming knowledge as well. And I qualified, if I remember correctly, I hope I remember it fine, on the sixth place, like world nationwide for the finals. So that got me to kind of, at the time I thought I'm so stupid and I managed to get sixth place. So maybe it's not that hard. But that was essentially my first contact with something related to competitive programming. Then when my studies happened, I studied in University of Warsaw, or maybe it's Warsaw University. I don't know which one is correct right now. Well, I didn't do much during my first year. Okay, I remember exactly how it started. Between second and third year, so like during summer. Okay, I'll move back a little bit in time. There were qualifications for ICPC. I remember that, and I went there out of curiosity. The qualifications looked like it was essentially like a 5-hour contest where we had some complex problems to solve. The rules were exactly more or less the same as ICPC. It's just it was an individual contest and then the teams were formed. So when I went there were a few of those more famous competitive Polish programmers. There was Tomek Czajka there and a few others, and I talked with them, and people will hate me for saying it, but I think I mentioned it in several other things, that I remember them talking about problems and maybe life and other stuff, and I felt at that point that they're just humans. There's nothing magical about them, so if they can do it, I can do it as well. And that was probably like this point of time where I thought, okay, maybe it's fine. It took me like over 1 year. So going forward, this moment between second and third year during summer, I lived with a few of my friends. And at some point we thought, hey, let's check out this AtCoder thing that everyone else does at our university. And then I started doing algorithmic contests.
And how did you switch to more the heuristic type of contests?
It took a few years before AtCoder even created this category of marathons. And I remember that at the start I wasn't really doing them because I thought, and this is probably what most of the other people think, is they require work. It's a lot of hours and I don't want to do that. My attention span is barely like 2 hours long, so but over time I found them more and more fun. In parallel I was doing both algorithmic stuff and marathon or heuristic, however you want to call them. One thing with algorithmic contests, one stat that I like to bring up is, and I honestly don't know how it happened, is at some point in AtCoder I was ranked 4th globally in algorithmic contests. So right below, I believe, Piotr at the time. And I have no clue how it happened because I'm pretty sure I didn't even know MaxFlow at the time. I remember that when we had hearts, the hardest problem, the AtCoder algorithmic contest had three problems always, and the hearts were usually solved by a few people. Mm, I remember that every time I solved a hard problem, it was through some weird trick that no one else was doing. So there was this. That's probably my favorite stupid solution that I wrote. Back then, the scope of different algorithms that you need to know was much, much, much smaller. And I was always the fan of keeping it small because I really dislike that you have to learn so many different algorithms that you essentially have to invest a lot of hours to be able to do some more complex stuff. So every time a problem popped up that required something that I wasn't happy with, I tried to make a statement of some sort that this is stupid. Um, so there was probably the worst of possible things that was required. The problem was very simple. It essentially you had to multiply two big integers, so you needed FFT. And it felt very silly, like that there was no problem solving part. You literally had to do FFT. And what I did was, so I wrote the brute force solution, and I saw that it takes, I believe, 7 seconds, and the time limit at the time was 2. So I thought, okay, if I write this in assembler, it will be fast enough. So I wrote my solution in assembler.
Like from scratch?
Yeah, I mean, I already had because of heuristics, I had knowledge of assembler. So
Okay.
the SSE AVX instructions that allow you to simultaneously perform like multiplications with 4 integers at the same time. So I knew that potential speed up in that case was at least 4 times, probably 8 times, and I knew that it will work if I do that. So
that's amazing.
So that was probably my proudest moment in algorithmic contests. But I did a lot of silly stuff like that, where I didn't really want to write down an expected solution.
And so so you've been very successful, obviously, in these heuristic contests, and very consistently so. I think these contests usually depend on the problem and the preparation or the mental state and everything, but you've been very consistent in your results. What do you think is the thing that made you so successful?
I don't know. So this is something that a lot of people ask me, and honestly, I'm not sure about it. Well, the obvious part is that I've been doing that for longer than pretty much anyone else. So I do have more experience, but that's the obvious answer. I don't think it answers everything, but at least it's some part of the bigger equation. I do like to describe myself as generalist. I'm not particularly good in any area. I'm decent in most of them. That's why no matter what kind of problem I'll see, I'm able to perform at least well. I'm very good at prototyping, being able to quickly figure. My intuition is also very good in general. I'm an intuitive thinker. I don't do deep analysis, and maybe that's one of the reasons I would completely suck with current algorithmic contests. But it somehow works. That's what gave me the win in this year's AtCoder. That my intuition that somehow other competitors haven't thought about this, like one specific simplification you could do with the problem. But other than that, at the time, probably mindset was also something that gave me edge. That I'm generally a very lazy person, but during the contest, I'm able to give 100% of myself. I'm able to go without sleep for very long hours. When I was Even when I was 35, I was able to go without sleep for 40, 50 hours and still be productive, which probably wasn't very smart, but I was able to do it. So with those 24-hour contests, that was a useful skill. And to be fair, like you mentioned it at the start, but like it was a team competition, and I had very strong teammates as well. Some of the those contests, I competed with Marek Cygan, who's very good in both algorithmic. He was in algorithmic and heuristic contests with Merit. He also was very good in both, and I also competed at least once with Mojito One. He won the very first marathon at TCO, and with Eric's as well. So I always had a very strong team. But yeah, I don't know if I could add anything to it. I do believe that being all-arounder, generalist, jack of all trades, however you want to call this, helps a lot in heuristics. And I never liked the idea of hyper-specializing in like a narrow field. I like the same with game dev. Even though my main specialty is game design, I did electronic music for several years. I could do 3D modeling if I had to. I'm very bad at 2D drawing, but I'm able to do something in most of the areas, and probably it transfers to heuristic contests where everything is important. You have to be good at code optimization. You need to be very good at prototyping. You need decent mindset, because it's very easy to have a small setback and it ruins your motivation during the contest. You need to have decent mental and physical stamina, because it lasts for way more hours. You have to be very good at it with time management. It's not that easy. So what I do in the contest, I often in parallel test, make small changes, and at the same time develop my bigger features. So I concurrently do bigger features and small changes to, like, it is a lot of those small things, and every one of them has significant impact.
Yeah. So future competitors can try to learn for that. Be a jack of all trades.
I would, I would say that way more people should do that, especially with AI coming, and no one really knows how the world is going to look like in 5 years. Even though, funny thing is that's the name of the talk I'm giving in like 2 months in one of the conferences with this exact title, how the world is going to look like in 5 years. But really, that's a clickbaity title. No one really knows that. And you will have to adjust on the fly very quickly, because the technology might do something obsolete, like one of the skills quite suddenly from one day to another. And yeah, I'm mumbling a bit, but
No, yeah. And actually, my last question was, what will the world look like in 5 years? But
oh, cool.
no, but I'm mostly interested, like, in relation to competitive programming. Like you've mentioned, I think recently that you think it will be harder to find sponsors.
Yes.
For competitive programming.
You did your research.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
So what changes do you think will need to be made in the next few years, maybe, so we can try to help the competitive programming survive?
Yeah, that's a really tough question.
Yeah.
Well, obvious answer is I don't know. Sorry, I have to go. I thought about it a bit, and in general, a lot of people like to use chess as an example, that AI solved chess, but chess is super popular right now. Essentially, it's an esport. It had its boom on Twitch, chess players are celebrities, influencers right now. So maybe stuff like this will happen to competitive programming, right?
I mean, you're a bit of a celebrity now.
Yeah, but for completely different reasons. Uh, in order for this chess-like thing to happen to competitive programming, is that competitive programming would have to be a spectator sport, and this did not happen. Like from my perspective, it's fun to watch people compete, if, but only in a way that I will also do some. That I more or less understand what they are struggling with. I have to read the problem. I have to think about the problem. The entertaining part is that how are they able to solve the problem? Like how to see that they are so much better than me, and it is fun, but this is the form of fun for like a very small set of people. Um, so but it has to, like we would have to find a way to do it. And I always thought that those 24-hour long contests could be made more for spectators. So if you had Deadline 24 or Marathon 24, the idea for those contests was that you had usually the teams were the size of three, so we had three different games that you played, and at the start of the contest, the games were live. So there on the server, the game was already playing, and you had to rush to write your program that will communicate with the server to actually move your units. Or I believe at Midnight Cold Cup you had Bomberman.
Yeah.
So the same concept, and it's spectator friendly in a way that you can see the game itself. And if the game is complex enough and you have commentators, that commentators can switch between showing the games and strategies which is accessible to a lot of people, and then maybe talk a little bit about the code. The interesting part is that with the boom of generative AI and like semi-automated coding, is that maybe it's possible now that it won't be like classic programming, but competitor could quickly describe what the strategy they want to implement. So suddenly they could have a very complex bot behavior within like 2 or 3 hours, which was not possible.
Yeah, that's what I was trying at Midnight Code Cup, but I wasn't a good coach for the bot, I guess.
What did you use for?
GitHub Copilot.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was literally I was watching the visualizer and I was just giving it tips like do this more often, avoid this, and at the end the code was like 2,500 lines.
Oh my god, Jesus. Yeah, at some point it's just you're not able to do anything by hand.
Yeah,
it's
no,
such a mess.
Absolutely not.
I don't think I ever had a code base that was over 2K lines in any of the contests,
neither.
and that was 24 hours.
Yeah. I thought that was like within 7-8 hours probably.
Yeah. Oh yeah. At some point you had to realize that you made a mistake, and it's too late now.
Yeah. But it gives you time to work on other problems.
Yeah, that is true, and you might feel good about yourself that you're not the one doing work.
Yeah.
Even though it's not good for the team in the end.
Yeah.
And so going back to your question, my original statement that I posted on Twitter was that what is expected is, and what's happening right now, is that the demand for software engineers is declining. And the main reason why you have sponsors in competitive programming is that companies are searching for software engineers. And the smaller, software engineering or related fields was always, there's a nice term that I forgot. that essentially the demand was higher than the number of people that was able to perform this job. So you had software engineers had higher salaries, all of those perks. They were companies were fighting for them. If I remember correctly, the cost of hiring like in US, like a random software engineer was 5 or 6 figures. So if the cost of hiring a regular software engineer is like $50,000, then you can suddenly throw a lot of money for the contests, and it's like a tiny fragment of the cost. So it's changing right now. Probably within the niches like hyper specialized, specialists for algorithms or stuff like that, they will still be demand. There's few technical reasons why it's probably the case, but it's still going to probably impact even those niches, because if you have smaller demand for regular software engineers, then you have software engineers without jobs. So they have to pivot towards some specialization where there's still some demand. And this means that in the whole field, you won't have a huge demand for, you will have in general just a surplus of engineers. So this leads us to lack of funds for programming contests. Obviously, even though AI is moving very fast, the companies always lag in terms of how they are managed, how they approach the spending, etc. So it will, when I believe I said 1 to 2 years, maybe it will be slower if the companies are very slow implementing and adjusting to the technological progress that we have, but some form of it will happen, and that's inevitable. Like even with the complete, even if the deep learning would hit the wall, it still happen, because we are already at the point where we can automate a lot of, maybe not automate, but we can make the process of coding a lot of faster in many different areas. We can also make the regular, how to describe this? If you work in a corporation, you have a lot of meetings, etc. So you can use generative AI right now to optimize this stuff, so you will have more time for your maker deep thinking, which results in requiring fewer programmers.
And especially juniors, which are probably the majority of competitive programmers in university, high school, and so on.
Probably, I would not like to give, advice to people that are just entering the job market. It's going, like, one thing we know, we are going to live through interesting times, for better or worse. It's just we have some ideas how the technology is going to evolve, but social impact,
this is just the beginning.
This is just the beginning, and it's very hard to predict. We have so many different futures where we can go, and I like to describe the future in terms of some form of distribution. I really dislike saying, oh, something will happen in this year or this year, because that's, at this point I'm just throwing numbers. Maybe that's like a median of my probability distribution, but I do feel that it gives false impression. But
yeah, we'll try to pivot, we'll try to survive, and
and by the way, going back to your original question about is competitive programming going to survive, there's a there are a few ways to do that. First of all, you have all of those programmers that are struggling to find a job and they have developed their programming skills, so maybe there will be spectators in the future. I mean, that's like, I'm half joking, but there might be some truth to it. Like I don't know what's going to happen in like a post-scarcity or however we want to call it this, where we don't have to work as humans too much. If it's ever going to happen, I kind of doubt it, but maybe it will. And then we have this leisure time that we have to use, and maybe this will be the fun part. The big problem, the current big problem is that, well, you have online competitions and people can cheat.
Yeah,
People
that's
can use
already a
models.
big problem.
And this is an unsolvable problem. That there's no, you could try, you could regulate that everyone would have to share their screen and use external AI model for analyzing if the competitor is actually solving stuff by themselves or just, but it's in the end it's an unsolvable problem. Even if you have infinite resources, and it's a global community, so you cannot do on-sites everywhere.
Especially with decreasing budgets.
Yeah.
Well,
with that positive accent,
we should stop there so we don't go into more negative things. But yeah, I appreciate your viewpoint. I think you definitely have a interesting viewpoint and experienced viewpoint in that area. Thanks again for giving us your time. I think this was very interesting to learn firsthand and not from journalists and newspapers. Yeah, so thanks to you as well for watching. If you like this discussion, give a like, subscribe, and whatever the other YouTubers ask for.